Du and I had the pleasure of meeting at the ADR's 30 Under 30 in Bali retreat. Fascinating story. I felt was really interesting to talk to somebody who's also emerged, tried other things, worked part-time, but also had that fantastic journey to London and done different things. Tune on in for a very interesting conversation. Dylan, thank you so much for joining us today on the podcast. So I'd like you to obviously introduce the CEO of AJC. Do you want to tell us a little bit about AJC, what sort of sectors you work in and who you help?
Yeah, sure. Thanks for inviting me today. It's great to have this opportunity. So AJC is a company that's 70 so years old. We work across multiple sectors. So we do a lot of residential, multi-residential, but also thinking about co-living, student accommodation, seniors living. So all of that roped into our sort of living sector. We have an urban design team, an interior design team, do a lot of community work with PCYCs and sporting, which leans into a little bit of the education sector, which is my core focus. So I sort of lead a team there. We do a lot of master planning, independent schools, and a little bit of government work.
Yeah, fantastic. Very exciting. And I mean, I think it's interesting to see what firms come about and what they focus on. You often find that there are very community-led firms. So obviously you affect the way that people live, but also then the way that they play, and obviously other interactions that they have as well. So how long has AJC been around for?
So 70 years, and really delighted that we actually, AJC, and particularly Keith Coddier, one of the founding directors of what used to be Alan Jack and Coddier, now AJC, won the Enduring Architecture at New South Wales Awards just last week. And we also were fortunate to win it last year for project in Moore Park Gardens, a residential project. So I think that's sort of a strength of our business, been around that long, being recognised for our legacy work and our new work.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, brilliant. And you operate out of New South Wales mainly, don't you?
Predominantly, we're Sydney-based. We have worked in other states, but our office is Sydney-based, and we have, I think, just under 80 people at the moment.
Yeah, fantastic. Excellent. So tell us a little bit about your story, sort of where did it start from?
I've been in the industry for a fair while now. I think coming up to 30-ish years.
Why did you want to do architecture in the beginning? It's actually a question.
Why did I want to do? Yeah, I think I'm one of those people that knew from a long time. Like from primary school, I used to build Lego models. Never had enough of the same color though. And even actually designed a doll's house. My dad was an architect, and I made him construct it with me out of white foam core. So I think that's pretty serious.
He must have been so excited though as an architect that you're there like wanting to build. And I mean, the reason I always ask this question is because we know that architecture, it's not the highest paid profession out of the entire industry. No. It is a profession of passion. And a lot of people really, it's just always been what they were going to do. They're either very good at art or the Lego response is often. And it's quite interesting. I have a 4 and a 5-year-old, and I watch my little 4-year-old, and I sort of call her the little engineer because she just loves building things and understanding how things work and doing that. And it's just interesting how to see how some of those progress. And lots of architects naturally had that sort of beginning as well.
I think there's a spatial understanding as well, like thinking 3-dimensionally. We also, my parents built a house when I was in primary school. So that was a really interesting process to see how that came about. I think my father's quite realistic in terms of what architecture is, though. I think that's a really important thing to understand. Like, we love the design bit of Lego or the creativity, but there's so much more that goes with it in terms of legislation, responsibility, risk. So it is really important to take the time to understand what architecture actually is as a career.
And I think as well, like the value that architects bring, we're going to have that conversation of sort of where we see the industry going and those things as well. But I mean, it is a registered profession. at the end of the day legislated in each state for that very reason, hence why you have registration boards. And that is because you are signing off on such risk. But I've always found a very interesting thing coming into the industry. And I mean, I obviously love architects. That's where I've done a lot of work with. And the reason I love them is because you have the ability, you often see people have either the big picture skill thinking or the minutiae detail. And I often think that it's a very, and that's why I asked that question, because it often gives me an insight into sort of where people's brains are at and where our innate strengths and skills are. You'll often find people who might be fantastic designers, but to be a consummate architect, and somebody asked me, what does that mean? And I was like, it means that you have the ability to do your own education, to consult and do all of that and understand, to design, but also then to be able to detail down to the smallest element of how is that balustrade actually going to come, or how is that balcony and that junction actually going to work together. And that is such a unique combination of way that I think architects' brains and skills, plus obviously in this industry, everything that you do is people. And I think architects, it's one of the most collaborative. We often talk about, and you'll see that, and we'll talk about that in your studio as Loan as well. That's why often lots of architects like, we need to come back to the studio because how we operate is collaborative. Most architects will say there was no one person who designed it. It was actually the group and the whole. What's your thoughts on that?
Oh, I absolutely agree. And to that point about having skills at front end, big picture, small skills, some of us still lean more heavily into one area than others. And that's why working in a team is so important, because you can balance, if you get the right team together, you balance those skills, but also the collaboration and the ideas. Like, that's just the energy that can come out of that can be so rewarding. Bouncing things and, oh yeah, we could do that. Let's try this and see where that goes. And because everyone's bringing a slightly different skill set, it just becomes, I think, a better outcome and a more rewarding process.
Well, and I think it's one of the interesting things too within design is that it is a skill at multiple levels, as we've just mentioned, but you'll often see people in actually bringing in sort of design element things that you'll do as a cultural part, but also in kind of making sure that you're keeping that design thinking. We often find, obviously, when you go to university, you spend majority of your time learning about design, and there are some universities where they just do so much design work, and then they come out and you're like, did they teach you anything about the code and how to put a building together? Because, okay, now we're going to have to teach you all of that, like in Revit. And there's other universities that they have quite a good practical mix with the design theory side. How do you guys approach that yourselves in keeping that design?
Oh, it's a really good question. And I guess that's where it is understanding when someone joins us, what their current skills are, what their experience is, and then what the opportunities for growth of that is. So that's a lot of discussions, career development discussions. We have a lot of one-on-ones sort of bi-monthly to make sure things are progressing through the year and that the skills are developing, but also they've got the support or training, or to be able to have conversations also if things aren't working.
Yeah.
Rather than waiting a year for a performance review or try and make it more of a continuous conversation, and then creating teams, I guess, around those skills so that there's that learning opportunity.
Yeah. And look, it is one of the best things that I love about that in architecture firms as well. So we started off that your parents were architects, or your
my dad.
Your dad is an architect, and that, you'd always knew you'd want to be one. So what happened after you finished? Where did you go to university? How did that all sort of progress on from there?
So I ended up going up to Newcastle for university,
It's
which
a good
wasn't
architecture university.
Yeah, fantastic. Yeah. Probably not my first choice, but I think it worked out really well in terms of, at that time, it was really about problem-based learning. And that's probably how my mind learns best.
Yeah.
So for me, it was a really good balance. So studied there, came back to Sydney, worked in some residential companies, and then went to London for a few years, which was amazing because I think at that time, just the vastness of offices there and the vastness of work, different types of work,
Yeah.
provided a bit more variation and opportunity
Well, I
to
mean,
try things.
London alone is, I mean, one, massive, and I don't know what it's like post Brexit, but essentially, you know, that city alone is bigger than the entire population of Australia, let alone it's like just a cultural melting pot, right, of
Yeah.
things going on and so many opportunities. Incredible. But I just left to take a step back. So you started working in small firms first on residential, really getting a really good, I suppose, exposure to end to end.
Yes. So multi-res sort of work and
Yeah.
some single res as well.
Yeah.
It was design focused. We had a really good team, really supportive team. Worked really hard,
Yeah.
long hours, but which is challenging. But I think because of the way the team worked,
Yeah.
it's sort of made it possible. If that makes
Yeah.
sense.
Yeah.
I think it was a really good way of learning about systems and approach to design and rational design. Yeah, and then how you can help that through the process of documentation.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, which is one of the things people forget, that sometimes they think the design is the look of the outside of the building, but actually it's actually integration of everybody's having the experience of walking through what all is the smallest detail can actually have the biggest impact on
Yeah.
those who are using the space as well. So fantastic. So then you did that. London, what type of projects did you get to work on when you went to London?
So I worked on some pretty interesting ones in London, actually. Some of the core ones, there was an old coach sort of studio. No, sorry, old coach sort of manufacturing warehouse
Yeah.
that we made into an art gallery, for a
Wow.
particular person who had an art foundation
Yeah.
that had specific requirements. It was very minimal. But one of the really cool parts of that was they had James Turrell, the light sculptor, design some lighting for the windows. So we had to
Yeah.
actually integrate that into the architecture.
Okay. And then so you were over there, because I'm now bringing up the link background as well. You were over there and then you
Uh,
came back, is that right, to Australia?
Yes, so after about 3.5 years, so I moved around a couple of offices in London, trying different
Lovely.
things. One office split up and various bits and pieces, but I took it as an opportunity to try different
It's great.
environments and
Yeah.
different size studios, different kinds of work. Then came back to AJC.
Came back from where it all started, is that right?
Well, I hadn't worked at AJC before,
Okay,
so
so
when I
came back
came
in.
back, I arrived at AJC. Fortunate timing at the end of 2007 before
Oh, the
the
GFC.
markets dropped, and so that was good. I was back in Sydney, settled, in a position, was happy. I had some good opportunities to do mostly working on residential and student accommodation
Yeah.
at that time.
And so I think as well we got to meet each other at the ADR's 30 under 30. I think you also mentioned you had actually left the industry for a little bit, to not the industry but left architecture to try something else different in the industry as well. So you can tell us a little bit about that. And I suppose, you know, you've been in the industry at different times. You have two kids. What that's also been like as an experience as a female coming up, and obviously now it is absolutely fantastic that I can meet with so many female CEOs or co-CEOs across the industry, particularly in architecture. I don't know if we would have had that many 10 years ago. So it's just also interesting for me to get your perspective on how you think the industry has changed, but also how you found those different experiences, and then why coming back to architecture was so vital.
Yes, there's a lot in that, so I'll try and answer it. So I was at AJC for probably about 5 years, and then I had two children over a couple of years. So I started working part-time. Actually, backtracking a little bit, I was already working slightly part-time because I had taken an opportunity to work to learn some silversmithing. I didn't actually get certification or anything,
That's pretty
but I
cool.
started doing that in London, and I wanted to make sure I still had a chance.
And this is jewelry making, is silversmithing?
Yeah, so silversmithing jewelry, but
wow.
that also is, you know, a very skilled title. So I'm cautious how I use it because, yeah, I was learning. I did do a couple of markets and things, but it was just something that I liked because architecture is such a massive scale and it takes such a long time. I found it as a really good outlet for a little bit quicker
creative
outlet.
Yeah.
And I really also enjoyed doing things, the making of it.
It's interesting to me how many architects, you know, will make their own furniture, will be artists as well. Like there's that element. But I think, as we just spoke about, keeping that creativity also helps your brain within that too. A different element, but I think it actually helps the linkage or continuing to foster that element of your brain and to grow those creative skills as well. So
completely.
it helps.
And that, like, it just helps with enthusiasm, I think, and yeah, getting your mind to work in slightly different ways. And similarly, I was also doing a little bit of tutoring at the University of Sydney, design tutoring, which is challenging because it is quite intensive.
Yeah.
But just so fantastic to step outside of your day job. And I'm always amazed how you can put one problem or one brief in front of so many people and have so many different outcomes. And, you know, that's kind of incredible. And it just shows the different ways of approaching a problem, of, you know, thinking about design, which also makes it challenging because it's so subjective. Anyway, I guess I had the kids.
Yeah.
Working part-time. Fantastic. AJC has always been so supportive in enabling or just supporting me as a parent, having flexibility, having that part-time opportunity. But I did get to a point when the kids were still quite little. It's difficult. It is difficult to balance.
Children. It's a load. It's a load.
And you have working parents. Yeah, it's not. There's a lot to manage. A lot of logistics. A lot of.
I often talk about it. It's like you've just got two jobs. You go to work, and especially if you're a leader or you're leading a practice, you're doing that many people, and you're in HR, the same. Like I suffered burnout probably a bit earlier on. Now I do what I do because I can manage everything. And it was like, you've got this, and then you go home and the kids don't care what you did, and work doesn't care about what the kid, and you're just like, I've got nothing left. I've got no energy left. I've got no ability to deal with people because there's that many, especially when they're little. Yours are quite close together, I think, like mine. Mine are about 15.
About 2.5 years.
Yeah, ours are about 15 months. So we're coming to out of it at 4 to 5, but definitely just, it's never ending. Is it? It's a load, particularly at that young age, under 10.
Yeah, and it's just like, just thinking, is there something that will work better for me, for the family? So I think, and even at that point, like, is architecture the right fit for me?
Yeah.
Just questioning a bit of everything.
I think we all go through those stages, though. I think it's important too.
And that's, I guess, what I was going to come back to. I feel like it was important because I went and tried other things. So I think I mentioned to you, I did my buyer's agent license, which is to help people buy property. So one of the thinking there was, well, I love looking at real estate, but also helping people make sensible decisions about what properties are good properties, what, like, just basic amenity and light and planning.
Absolutely. Which actually an architect is exceptionally well based in that, because generally if you are trying to do something, somebody wants something done up, they don't really fully understand how much that cost might be. Or I, unfortunately, whilst I love working with architects, I have no design eye and no ability to see the vision that you guys can see. And it is a skill to be able to do that. And I'm assuming it would have really helped an architectural background, because if I had somebody advising me, like, okay, all right.
I think so, but even just fundamentals, just the basics, even if you're not going to do anything with the property, just understanding what makes for a good livable kind of environment. So I did that for a while, which was really interesting and I enjoyed it. I had thought that if I worked on the Saturday but was around more on the weekends, that would be okay.
Yeah.
But actually working on Saturday when all the family just at home in the mornings wasn't so
tough.
great.
Yeah.
And then I actually got approached by University of Sydney to be a design manager from my student accommodation background. So I thought, okay, let's go give that a try. Another really fascinating learning, just being on the other side, the client side of things.
Yeah. And
But
what
it
did you
really
learn
came
from that side? Because I think
Pardon?
it's another thing. What did you learn from that side? Because it's interesting how architects will be looking at it from a certain angle. PMs will look at it from a certain angle. Design managers or development managers, if you're working for the client, will be looking at it from a certain angle as well. What was the differences that you noticed?
I think just about in terms of, the financial modeling behind some of the directions and the decisions, and then also like the operational requirements. So that was quite interesting to learn from that side and to try and assist in looking
like
at
how much it
opportunities.
needed to have the vacancies or what it needed to be
how they do the yearly modeling, but also just what it means if you only get this much accommodation in terms of it stacking up or not, like what the costs of construction are, the operational costs, how that's panned out over a number of years, those kind of costs. But actually, I just missed being part of design. And
it is an interesting thing I hear from people that, and often when people leave, design managers generally get paid more and so do project managers get paid more. It was interesting. I was at an event that was not related to our industry. And I was talking to people, this was a mentoring type thing. I said, hey, do you enjoy your job? And they're like, nah. And I was like, it's very interesting. I don't get that reaction. I very rarely get that reaction from an architect. And this is when we talk about Maslow's hierarchy of needs. I often say that architects are at that self-actualization level, right? We've got to make sure we create great environments for them to work and do that. But because of the creativity and because of being driven to love the design and the satisfaction you get, it was a reminder to me that I'm so privileged to work with so many people who love what they do. It's hard. It's a really tough industry, but I think a lot of people forget that majority of people out there don't really love their job or get any real satisfaction out of it and go to work for a paycheck. And that's not what I see in this industry. There's something
It's really interesting. I am going to, maybe it's because how long I've been doing it. It's not like that 100% of the time, I don't think.
Yeah.
Like,
you don't love it every day.
Anyone that's going into the industry, just,
Yeah, the times when you work your ass off, the project never goes through, or you've been on this many times, or the pressure alone is intense, but you get to walk past something every day. This is what I find hard with mine versus what you guys get to do is build something tangible that actually people are interacting with every day and stays there for, let's say, 50, 70 years as a minimum, or a workspace for a certain amount of time or whatever it is. It's a different satisfaction level, I think.
And it is very hard to explain that sense of going to something when it's finished.
Yeah.
If it's turned out relatively how you'd hope. But it is really amazing, like going to site and thinking, that decision, that worked. Like, it's going to, but when you actually see it built and then you see how people, exactly as you said, go into it or respond to it.
It's incredible.
Pretty amazing. And then that is also the responsibility, because if you get that wrong, the converse can happen. It does impact how people feel in an environment.
Absolutely. And I mean, it's interesting too, because I've had this conversation with others that obviously in industry now where the construction costs are so high and things can get harder to stack up. Sometimes as designers, you can't design exactly what you want. That sometimes you have to find the little design decisions that you can put in. And we often talk about this on sustainability, right? You may be able to make sustainable decisions that the client, that might not be their priority, for some might be,
Yeah.
but pricing and stacking up is that those little decisions that you make or those little good design can actually be made by actually making differences without people necessarily knowing. And then the satisfaction of walking in and going, that little thing that we managed to push through or get to happen has actually made a fundamental difference.
Yeah.
Especially
And knowing what nice to have versus isn't, like, because sometimes you're not going to always get everything cool in everything. So it's like, okay, well, if we, just to knowing, what are the really critical things? What are the core needs of that brief and client?
And I think that's a really interesting part of education. So tell us now how you sort of came about. So obviously you when did you come back into the fold with AJC?
So 2016.
Yeah.
So we're coming up to 10 years now. Back, and again, part-time.
Yeah.
I think it was great to come back to a company where I knew the people, I knew how to operate it, and also even they also knew how I worked.
Yeah.
And so I think that's been really helpful in terms of being able to develop my career and being able to do that part-time. I think the thing just in terms of being part-time is that I didn't do that on my own.
Yeah.
Like I had amazing people, I still do, in the team, and we support each other, and you balance the role, and ideally that they have some autonomy and they develop as well.
Yeah.
And I can step out. And so I think that's like communication.
I was just about to say.
Yeah.
Generally, we find I'm a massive advocate of part-time. We run a remote first team. We run people at different hours and part-time, and that's a massive thing. I don't find it very difficult, but I obviously have worked in different organisations and trying to support different leaders at different times. I think where I've seen that people are very, very successful and it's not made an impact on their career at all where they've worked part-time is they're great communicators. I'm not going to be here. We know everything. Everything's already communicated. What do we need to do? I often think that those skills are quite transferable and actually setting up for success. Like, I was talking to somebody yesterday who's considering a remote sort of role, and I'm saying, here's something I would use. So we use technology called Loom. So we can I can video things and do things. So, and I actually think every designer should use it because it's great. Your video, I've reviewed this, for us, we use it, review this, no, this needs a change. You can send that back to that person. It's async, so they can look at that link, review it, come back to you, and you're already getting it done. Like you're sitting there. For example, I had a meeting this morning. I was like, could this have been a Loom? And I was like, no, well, we're sort of having a discussion of things. That's what a meeting becomes, is where we have a discussion versus an instruction. And we find it very useful because people can pause and do things. But the point is that there's also that way. It is about communication. It is about setting things up in a certain way. But I think it's also, as a leader, being able to change and go, that person's not here on a Friday, or if it's rotating. So I need to stack that in before. Often we would tell people, don't forget to communicate at sort of lunchtime. I'm not going to be here. Is there anything you need from me today?
Yes.
And I've always found those people who succeed with part-time, it's because they're also proactive and great communicators. And I'm assuming that's then what's led you on, being in education. That's really, really important as well. But I'm assuming then that's what's led you on to become into the role that you have today as the CEO as well.
Yes, I think so. Like, I think that ability to kind of communicate, and I think I enjoy multitasking.
As an ADHD person, that would be my core function of what I do. So
I get restless or something. So I think being able to, I can switch between things.
Yeah, great.
And so I think that helps along with communication. Well, one of the core things I think that's really helped me is actually having to learn to let go and to delegate through hard time. Not let go like just
no,
but not have to be across everything, to build trust with people, and that's allowed me therefore to step off the every bit of the project to be able to think more about the office holistically.
And that's why we sort of talk about that within people's career levels too, right? So you spend the first sort of 10 years in your technical skills and learning in that, and then you'll start to learn how to manage. We go from managing your time to managing other people's time, and then starting to put program and then fee, and then starting to understand how to maintain client relationships and deliver good work to win more work, account management sort of stuff. And then we start to go into business development of actually how to create new relationships and actually leverage and get new projects in the door and lead that. There's an evolution, there will be people who will stay at wanting to be in the detail and, let's say, the more technical side or in the design. Everybody is different. As it's often when we talk about making up a team, I always talk about that you make a team via like a puzzle. You fit them together versus it having to be just a block here, even though sometimes visually it looks like a block somewhere. But I think that's a really important part, that some people are enabled to do that and deal with multiple things at once. I actually do think being a parent also helps you with this, because it's just like, that's a tomorrow problem. That's a today problem. We'll deal with this. You've got so many functions and things going on in your head, the ability to kind of go, that's without at the moment, but also to enable and trust and to build other people. And I think that's the next stage of a career too. As you get to that, you can't be in the finite detail. You have to help other people on, particularly in an 80 size person firm. You are leading that versus being in that detail level or mentoring other people onto it and doing that checking, which is obviously the evolution you're talking about.
Yeah, I think that's absolutely a critical part of it. And then also how you build a team, how you put a team together, because that communication, not just between you and the team, but within the team.
Absolutely.
And ability to build rapport across people, particularly in design industry, like being able to think how that person works and progress things autonomously.
Yeah, I mean, it's if anybody knows me and what I do, that is one of the key things. It's one of the areas that I love doing as an HR person, but it's then being able to, now I've had to learn how to take that stuff that's in my head and be able to progress that into something that people can tangibly see. But at the end of the day, it is about people and bringing people together. So tell us a little bit, we've only got another 5 minutes because you've got to run as well. So where do you see some of the challenges in the industry and the opportunities ahead as well?
Yes. So I sort of fluctuate a little bit here around, obviously, there's a lot of conversation around AI and what the impact of that will be. I am no expert on that. Some of the things I've seen, like around using it in terms of Revit and computer analysis tools, I could see this as actually an amazing opportunity to automate some of the things that can be automated and allow more focus on the design, the three-dimensional thinking, the creative side of work that gets shortened now because of the analytics that we need to do. So I can see how that could free us up in some ways.
Well, we often use that example of the old door schedules, right? Like, who loves the door schedule? Number one task. That's brilliant. Thank you very much. Right?
Yes. But it does mean that the skills at a graduate level and things may need to be different, because at the moment, some of those tasks that are
repetitive,
and it sounds terrible, but that's sometimes how you learn the computer, how you learn the detailing, how you learn to work in a team, and
Yeah.
is some of that repetitive work. And so I do worry about, what does that mean? How do we bring grads into the conversation, and how do we make sure there's meaningful and
Yeah.
development opportunities there?
I mean, I think it's an interesting thing, and I've had this conversation previously. If we look over the last sort of 100 years, you know, a firm of 80 that would only be producing the drawings that now you can do with BIM and things like that. So it definitely has evolved. But in the same way, you often are with the graduates like, oh, you've modelled it, but it's like, yes, but have you actually thought about the documentation and the drawing that's going to go out to the builder, and how is this actually going together? And it's that interesting thing of what you use with your hands and you would have had to learn, and that craft that's come along. You know, model making doesn't exist in the same way very much anymore.
Yeah.
But we use in a different form. So I think our brains evolve. But that is a fundamental question I do have for the industry that I think will be very interesting, is watching how these things that you would learn as a graduate and do, how that learning is still going to evolve over time. And you're going to do it when AI will. Because as somebody said the other day, I thought it was a great line. And she was like, we're talking about AI. She's like, yeah, but it's like a car. It's like, at the end of the day, you need to know how to drive the car. If you don't know how to drive a car, you can have a crash and it can be a disaster, right? But you need to know what you need to be able to do and what you need to be direct out, what's right, what's not right. We just came from something and I was like, that's not right. This is what I know is, and we'll actually keep going to what we need to do. But it is that sense of a certain amount of knowledge will, and I think now the role of quality assurance is going to continue as well. So I think we'll definitely see some changes and things like that in the industry. What do you think are some of the fundamental skills and areas that will not change and are going to still be paramount for the next 10 to 20 years for the next generation coming through?
Relationships, like particularly, I guess, with education, which the education field is like working with schools, understanding the ethos, understanding the vision, and these are places for people.
Yeah.
So that relationship, that they can trust you to hear them and deliver, I think that's still going to be a critical part of what we do.
The people element doesn't change. The business element doesn't change. The technical elements, the architecture actually doesn't change. It's just the skills to help you get there may change.
And I think the conversations may change with people being able to create their own views of what they want something to look like. And so there's going to be some challenging conversation.
Yeah, there definitely is. And I think we had somebody on previously who said that, you know, they're just, as you mentioned before, when you're in a design shoot, you give somebody a problem. You know, AI just becomes that 11th person, right? If there's 10 people, 10 architects in the room, they'll have 10 different solutions. But AI turns into that 11th solution, or can give you hundreds of those potential solutions, but it's just another viewpoint. The thing is that obviously AI draws on information and trends that are out there. It will struggle. Well, it will see, you know, its reiterations, but that human element will still continue. I think it will hopefully reduce some of the costs and enable more. Maybe it means there can be more built. You know, there can be more done. The trades are our biggest problem in Australia. That's obviously stopping that at the moment. But, you know, there is obviously a lot of work that is sitting in that hasn't actually gone through yet. So I think we'll see a big emergence and continuous evolution in things as well. Thank you so much for all of your time, and we'll be in touch from there.
Thank you. Thanks, Nathan. Bye.
What a lovely chat, and it's a great example of somebody who's been able to make it work, but it's also about the organisation being able to support them to succeed. I found it very interesting that as we progress throughout our careers, actually that ability as a leader to be able to compartmentalise, take in information, be able to trust others and enable others to succeed is fundamental to what good leadership is. Thanks to her so much for her time, and we hope you enjoyed the episode.